Welcome to our podcast, 21st Century Native Leaders. Dr. Larry Emerson is a Navajo scholar and leader from Shiprock, New Mexico. Dr. Emerson shares his wisdom as a lecturer and conference presenter. Dr. Larry Emerson's dissertation work is titled Kojunahasli Towards a Practice of Diné Decolonization. In his dissertation, he attempted to understand the dialectical nature of colonialism and decolonization. All right, so we are here with Dr. Larry Emerson, and we're going to ask him some questions. Dr. Emerson, where are you from, and what are your clans?
I'm from a community called Tedakran, about 8 miles east of Shiprock. I live on the farm there. I'm a Tanahabisni and Toihe Glini are my fathers, and Hoansana are my Nellies, and Tia Anis are my Chays.
Okay. What are some highlights from your career?
I think doing a lot of healing work regarding my past, my father and mother, family, our family's past, and probably in general the Navajo communities, the native people. That's probably one of my best things I've learned about.
And this is something you learned as a child growing up?
Well, I experienced some trauma, like most native people, and went through a lot of turmoil, including alcohol problems and so on, and just coming to terms with our histories and our colonization and things like that. That's been really a long process, but I've not necessarily enjoyed it, but I enjoy that it can be overcome.
And what do you think the trauma stems from?
It's historical,
okay,
and then it's intergenerational. It stems from war, for example, the 1860s for the Navajo, the Bosque Redondo, stems from loss of land, loss of language, loss of identity caused by the boarding school era. Comes with a lot of suicide rates and addiction rates and health disparities that are usually more frequent than other groups. There's a reason for that, which is connected to trauma and resolved trauma. So that's kind of what I've tried to learn about.
Oh, okay. And what personally helped you overcome this historical trauma or personal trauma?
Combination of Western therapy and ceremony. Those two.
Traditional Navajo ceremony?
Yeah.
And how were you able to couple Western with traditional Navajo to overcome this trauma?
Well, now it's to center Navajo's ceremonial group and then put Western on the margin.
So let's take a look at leadership. I know people in our community, our Native community, really look up to you as a leader. I know some people back in Wisconsin that said that they heard you speak at a conference. What was your path to leadership?
Staying in the background all the time, not going into elections, not doing any of that kind of process, but staying in the background, and I guess knowing, being a scholar helps a listener, and being able to ask questions, be in dialogue with people, have some sense of spirituality, and when need be to assert, knowledge to defend ourselves as Native people.
Oh, that's nice. In scholarship earlier, what was your path to attain your level of education?
Everything's been pretty much driven by social justice concerns for Native people and people of color or people who have undergone oppression. That's really been the reason to study or to think about history or culture or politics, or identity, language, things like that. So, and then also research. Those kind of concerns have always driven me to be in school and to learn through some sort of discipline. The two main disciplines have been psychology, and then the other one has been educational philosophy.
So do you get a lot of your leadership traits or characteristics from a combination of those two?
I think so. I don't try to be a leader, but I really do. I think because I study a lot and I think a lot and so on, things I say, have impact, I hope. And I think because of thoughts and ideas and concepts and things like that, that's where my maybe image as a leader comes from.
You take a very humble approach to leadership, and I think that's one characteristics that I really envy from you. So looking at other leaders in our community, maybe even national, what makes a good leader in your eyes?
Someone who's really socially just, and someone who's truly committed to decolonization of the mind, of the body, of the community, of politics itself, of maybe nation building, and so on. People who are able to be honest and transparent and forthright in what they're trying to convey to the people. They have to be accurate, so they should have some kind of knowledge base by which to take action. And the women leaders, I think, probably are next to take leadership, and the men probably need to stand aside. For the men to stand aside is a form of leadership too. So it seems to be working out that way.
Oh, okay. So a lot of my research has been on leadership and leadership theory. So, thinking about nature versus nurture, do you think you were born a leader or did you learn to be a leader?
I would think social, political, economic conditions create a leader. On the Navajo side, the Hojo and teachings are about nurturing as well. So they have to be balanced. In the Navajo matrilineal sense, the nurturing and the love and the compassion, the interdependent relationships come from the foundation of Navajo leadership. So I guess it's both. So I liked how you're talking about Keh, and can you expand a little bit more on Keh and that relationship that we have as a Navajo people? The way I understand our creation stories, there was a time when we were very socially disorganized people and we're suffering because of that. And so when changing women intervened and showed us how kinship, how it operates, and where our clans come from, and this whole thing about when we heard it, we heard it through ceremony like the blessing way or beauty way ceremony, and it transformed us into a tribe, so to speak, and it transformed us into social units that were meant to collaborate and work together and in a collective sense. And so that kind of social, political, economic organization was attained through a compassionate, interdependent system, And so the is about how humans can get along, and how humans and earth and sky, the ecological dimension, how you can get along there rather than be denatured or anti-nature. So that's very comprehensive understanding of interdependent relationships, not separational stuff, but relational understanding of life. That says a lot because, if you look at the research, that says that humans can't exist without being around other humans. So that's pretty powerful what you said. So what does the future look like for Native people? I think my guess from the traditional knowledge side is that because we're not linear people, there's not a need necessarily to predict outcomes. And as one might be tempted to do in a linear model. Not that linear models are irrelevant, but because we're not a linear people on the traditional side, the future is really a struggle to maintain harmony and balance at the individual and the collective level. Do you think there's a way we can break that cycle if it's not linear? Just going to the Hogan and sit in a circle and process things that way. There's a procedure, there's a protocol for all that, and people just need to escape, so to speak, to the Hogan every so often and learn how to process things in a non-linear manner. You can always go out of the Hogan back into the linear world, but you can't just be linear, So it's best to go back to the Hogan and learn a whole different epistemology and pedagogy that pre-modern or non-modern and pre-colonized, non-Western. And you got to get your experience there. It's very necessary.
How much energy or sustenance do you get from the Hogan and the teachings?
Well, I get my sense of values and sustenance and kinship and cosmological understanding of a sense of place, a sense of belonging, and a sense of song, a sense of prayer, a sense of ceremony. That's what I get from the Hogan.
So
how to be a good human being.
How to be a good human being?
Yeah.
So quite a few of our listeners are millennials, and based on what you were just talking about on the Hogan teachings, what would you tell those millennials?
Go into non-linear sacred spaces. In our case, it's matrilineally guided and shaped, and learn how to talk from your heart, and learn how to relate to the earth and sky, as well as other people in a good way, and learn the spirit of it, of being able to, in a group, to be of one song, one mind, and one prayer. It can be done. It's not that big of a deal, but get out of that modern world and get into the non-modern world as much as you can. Learn the primordial aspects of what it means to be a human, and what the medicines are for well-being, and then come out of the Hogan the next day, 4 days later, and go back into that modern world. 'Cause you'll have a compass, a moral compass, so to speak, to engage modernity.
That's very interesting. I'm glad you shared that with us. I know for me, every couple of probably 6 or 7 months, I try to have a ceremony or smoke mountain tobacco just to recenter myself. But I think that's very, very important for our younger generation to know. So do you think, what you were just talking about, do you think that was what created that Native Studies programs in universities?
I think it was a longing for it, a way to relearn our history, and a way to cause Native scholars to write our own narrative, write ourselves back into history. We've been written out of history and continue to be an invisible kind of people. So I think the Native Studies was to give voice and action and thought to who we are as a people, and make it a public discourse, so that everybody could, not just Native people, but everybody could learn the indigenous experience.
So just to expand on that, there's another question. How important is culturally responsive teaching to the youth?
It's very important because there's a lot of things implied in culture. One is values, one is language, one's identity, one's history, one's politics, and voice. It's not just like food and dress and so on. Architecture. It's a lot bigger than that, and we do live in a diverse world and country, And it's a good idea to have safe dialogue between cultures and to learn from each other,
Nice. I like that. I mean, there is a lot of diversity, I think, with, even though you're not related, you still shake hands. At least that's what my dad and my Nella taught was, that no matter what, you still shake hands and you introduce yourself in Navajo. So, name 2 of the greatest challenges Navajo people have faced.
I think colonization is one, for sure. A losing of our soul that has resulted in self-doubt, I think those 2 are really big ones.
So, aside from the historical trauma, looking towards the future, what do you think Navajo people need to do to be prosperous?
They need to remember our kinship system. They need to remember it as a structure, as a methodology, as a socialization process. Because the sharing of wealth, the sharing of labor, the sharing of resources and knowledge is best done through a very healthy kinship system. So there's individual merit involved, but it's always tied to a collective. So it seems to be unhealthy if Navajo people, as individuals, fight for themselves, and they value competition over cooperation, and they have a denatured view of the world, and they're driven more by material gain rather than spiritual well-being. Things like that. I think that's the danger. We're always at that threshold. That's the problem we have to understand. We have in our own front yards the solution, which is our kinship system.
So, would you say the kinship system is a way for Native people to get over Indian jealousy?
Yeah, it's colonization created hierarchy, created an imbalance in the wealth and class and gender in such a vertical, hierarchical framework. Yeah, people are going to be jealous of each other because someone's always higher than you. So, and the kinship system, the traditional one, it's not like that. It's everybody's even Steven and so on. And you learn to value the group merit. And we see that when the group is functioning in a healthy way, the sharing of resources and so on that I talked about earlier, it occurs, like farming. You share your crops and you help each other pick up hay and so on. Those values are very important to prevent runaway individualism.
So you mentioned a term earlier when you were talking about wealth. How do you view wealth?
In the Navajo, it's in our ceremonies, and it has to do with in the Navajo, it's in our ceremonies, and it has to do with minerals and turquoise and water and earth and that kind of materialism. And it doesn't have to do with like money, or wealth as a form of control and domination, wealth as a form of manipulation of labor, let's say. So it's not like that. So that doesn't mean that Navajos, as we came into contact with Western economic thinking, for example, or political thinking, that we didn't get seduced by it. We got seduced by it, by wealth,
Right.
Because power and wealth go together. We didn't have a word for money in the beginning, which I think is good, because the word peso comes from the Spanish language.
Oh, that's right.
Neither do we have a word for power. Best we could do is Benehizil or Shitziz, which do is connected to the word just, which means mountains. So that's about as far as we went at one point, and there's a good discussion in that. Why it's a good practice not to have money and power in your language. And so, we did get seduced by wealth and power, and we continue. How we understand ourselves in the traditional primordial sense is where there's not a lot of dialogue about that. It's all about capitalism now. It's all about Walmarts and consumerism and resource extraction. So we need to find another way to be a society. And the way to do that, the values for that are embedded in our traditional ways of knowing.
Can you share some more of the traditional ways of knowing?
Yeah, they're non-modern, they're non-Western, they're non-linear. They're not stuck on hierarchy. It's not about patriarchy. It's not about colonization. It's not about individualism at all costs. It's very pro-environment, respecting the environment as their relatives. It's really built on sharing and loving each other in an interdependent way. So there's a epistemology in that, and there's songs and there's ceremonies, there's dances, that express that. So that's kind of how I look at indigenous ways of knowing on the traditional side.
What do you think hinders Navajos from progress?
I think that linear assumption that progress is forward moving, it's linear, it's not accountable to the past necessarily. The trajectory almost requires you to leave your culture behind and progress technologically, scientifically, philosophically, economically. That description I just made, it contradicts the Navajo one where you're always going in circles, and progress, when you go in circles in a collective sense, it's always about sharing. It's always about interdependent love and so on. So there's the society moves together. They can have technology, they can go modern technology, they can do modern this, modern that, while they're in the non-linear mode, and have a different kind of progress that isn't about one generation just taking care of itself. Navajo would theoretically think about progress in 102-year increments as a social unit. So I think it's probably more healthy to think about Navajo non-linear progress than the other model, which tends to rip families apart. It tends to rip communities apart and displace families and things like that. So,
what's one question you would ask Carlisle the Gay?
Do you know about what Navajo decolonization means?
And why would you ask him that?
So that, to me it means to walk in beauty. It's pretty innocent, beautiful way of being, to decolonize. It means to shed philosophies and political practices that are anti-natural world, that are very much based on power, control, colonial thinking, imperialism, capitalism, and so on. And our native people would go that route, sort of abandon their own culture, thinking that they're enhancing the culture by, let's say, going capitalist. The question is really about him to think about our own merits as Navajo people, our own Hogan, our grandmas, our grandpas, and our land, our songs, is really the imperative, so to speak, not grafting ourselves on like parasites onto economic, political systems that are not healthy for us. Just to be a good human being, and the Navajo model, and it's really basic stuff. It's not a religion and so on. It's just a basic way of knowing that helps make us a good human being. As I said, it's very primary, It's a lot of basic wisdom in our way of knowing. And in that sense, it's minimal,
Right.
It's not excessive and so on. It's very grassroots, very basic and fundamental, right down to the air we breathe, to the water we drink, and the sunlight we absorb. It starts there. It's pretty rich, a rich way of looking at life. And if there's power, it's really Danahidze, which comes from the word tis, which comes from the 6 sacred mountain teachings, of how to be a good human, how to be a good society. It's more like that, I think. So far.
So how can people contact you if they want to hear more about the Hogan teachings, about the historical trauma and how to overcome? How can people reach out to you?
My email is Emerson714 Gmail. They can contact me that way.
Okay. And are you active on Facebook?
Yes, but I have an account, but I don't interact that much. I just read. Yeah, maybe I'll check in 3 times a week.
Oh, okay. Well, I thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to share your knowledge, experience, and wisdom with us. I think our millennial population is pretty huge now, and exactly what you shared with us will help give them some insight to some of these issues that we are facing as a Native people. So did you have anything else you want to say?
That's it, I think.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you taking time, like I said before. We'll go ahead and edit this podcast, and we'll put it out probably within the next 2 weeks or so.
Thank you for what you're doing, and I appreciate what you're doing. Appreciate who you are. I'm your dad. You were a mentor to me, and yeah, no question. But, just gratitude.
That concludes our podcast for this week on 21st Century Native Leaders. Thank you for joining us, and listen to our program next week.